There's an old saying among paranormal investigators. The most dangerous entities aren't the ones that hide in the dark with claws and fangs. The most dangerous ones are the ones that look at you with your own face. The ones that walk in the shoes of the people you trust most. We like to believe we know our friends. We know their habits, the way they laugh, the specific cadence of their voices. But what if one night, the person standing next to you wasn't a person at all? What if it was something else, wearing your friend like a suit? Today's story takes us deep into the heart of suburban Ohio, to a cold case that has baffled local authorities for 5 years. It's a story about teenage boredom, peer pressure, and an abandoned high school that locals swear is infinitely hungrier than it looks. This is the story of Alex Thorne, a 16-year-old boy who wanted to be famous, wanted to impress the wrong people, and who walked into the darkness with 2 companions that simply did not exist. Before we enter Blackwood High, if you appreciate deep dives into the unexplained and the terrifying, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The dark gets lonely, and you'll want us with you. Let's begin. It was 11 p.m. on a sticky Tuesday night in July. The kind of dead-end summer night where the heat refuses to lift even after the sun goes down. 4 teenagers were crammed into Steve Miller's basement. The air was thick with the smell of stale pepperoni pizza, Axe body spray, and the ozone scent of overheating gaming consoles. At the center of the group was Steve. He was the alpha of the little pack, loud, athletic, and casually cruel. He owned the basement, he owned the console, and in many ways, he owned the social dynamic. Then there were Ryan and Josh, Steve's shadows. They laughed when Steve laughed, agreed with whatever opinion he held, and generally existed to reinforce Steve's ego. And finally, there was Alex. Alex Thorne was the outlier. He was quieter, obsessed with internet fame, constantly trying to launch a TikTok or Twitch career that never quite took off. He desperately wanted to be part of the inner circle, but he was always just on the fringe, usually serving as the butt of Steve's jokes. Alex threw his controller down in frustration. The game over screen on the 75-inch TV was mocking him. "Dude, I can't do this anymore," Alex groaned, rubbing his eyes. "Summer break just started like 48 hours ago, and my brain is already melting. We've been playing Warzone for 6 hours straight. We need to do something real." Steve leaned back in his gaming chair, taking a long pull from an energy drink. He smirked. "Something real? Like what, Alex? You want to go upstairs and ask my mom for more pizza rolls? That's about as much adventure as you can handle." Ryan and Josh snickered reflexively. "Shut up, Steve," Alex muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. "I mean something epic. We need content, something that'll actually blow up online, not just sitting here rotting." Steve spun his chair around to face Alex, a predatory glint in his eye. He loved this game, baiting Alex until he snapped. "Okay, Mr. Content Creator," Steve said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You want an adventure? You want to prove you're not just a keyboard warrior? I've got an idea." The room went quiet. Steve rarely had ideas that didn't involve trouble. "You know Blackwood High?" Steve asked quietly. The name hung in the air. Blackwood High School sat on the far edge of town, bordering the dense forest preserve. It had been shut down 10 years ago after a massive boiler explosion killed the night watchman and compromised the building's foundation. Since then, it had become local legend. The younger kids whispered that the watchman's ghost still patrolled the halls, dragging his bum leg. The older kids, the stoners and the troublemakers, used the parking lot for deals, but few dared to actually go inside. It stood like a rotting tooth on the edge of civilization, massive, imposing, and utterly silent. Alex swallowed hard. "Yeah, I know it. So what?" Steve leaned forward, sensing blood in the water. "So here's the deal. You're always talking about urban exploring for your channel, right? Prove it. Tonight, you go into Blackwood, all the way up to the 3rd floor, the floor where the explosion happened. You go to the main window facing the street, flash your phone light so I can see you, and film the whole thing." Alex hesitated. He knew the rumors. He knew the police patrolled that area heavily. Seeing his hesitation, Steve reached behind the TV and pulled out a sleek, unopened box. It was the new high-end DualSense Edge Pro controller, the one that cost $200, the one Alex had been drooling over for months. "You do it," Steve said, tapping the box. "This is yours, tonight, no cost." It was a trap. Alex knew it was a trap. Steve just wanted to see him scared, maybe get him arrested for trespassing. But the controller, and the chance to finally shut Steve up, it was too tempting. "Fine," Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll do it. Easy." Steve's grin widened into something unpleasant. "There's a catch, though. I don't trust you, Alex. You'd probably hide in the bushes by the entrance for 10 minutes and claim you went in." He pointed a thumb at his 2 lackeys. "Ryan and Josh are going in with you. They make sure you actually go to the 3rd floor." Ryan and Josh looked surprised, but under Steve's glare, they quickly nodded. "I'll drive." Steve stood up, grabbing his keys. "Let's see if Alex has a spine." The drive to the edge of town was suffocatingly quiet. Steve drove too fast, the dashboard lights casting eerie shadows on their faces. Alex sat in the back seat, squeezed between Ryan and Josh. He noticed something odd during that 15-minute drive. Usually Ryan and Josh wouldn't shut up. They'd be cracking jokes, talking about girls, echoing whatever Steve said. But tonight, they were dead silent. They just stared straight ahead at the road, their bodies rigid. Alex nudged Ryan. "Hey man, crazy that Steve's making you guys come too, huh?" Ryan didn't blink. He didn't turn his head. He just offered a monosyllabic grunt. Alex chalked it up to nerves. They were just as scared as he was, he figured. They pulled up about 100 yards from the school entrance, parking on a gravel shoulder hidden by overgrown oak trees. Steve cut the engine, plunging them into near-total darkness. Blackwood High loomed ahead of them. It was a monolithic brick structure from the 1950s, 4 stories tall. Most of the windows were boarded up with plywood that was now rotting away, looking like blackened eye sockets. The silence of the area was heavy, unnatural. No crickets, no wind, just the massive, dead building. "All right, heroes," Steve whispered, turning around in the driver's seat. "Showtime. There's a breach in the fence around the back near the old gymnasium entrance. That's your way in." Alex fumbled for his phone, turning on the flashlight. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. "Don't wet yourself before you even get out of the car, Alex," Steve sneered. "Remember, 3rd floor, center window. Flash the light 3 times." Alex opened the car door. The night air was surprisingly cold, much colder than it had been back at Steve's house. "Let's get this over with," Alex muttered. He stepped out onto the gravel. Behind him, Ryan and Josh exited the vehicle in perfect unison. This is the point in the story where things begin to feel wrong. Alex led the way to the back of the school, flashlight being cutting through the weeds. He found the tear in the chain-link fence Steve had mentioned. The metal was rusted and bent back, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Alex stopped at the fence line, his heart hammering against his ribs. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to turn around, run back to the car, and tell Steve to keep his stupid controller. He turned back to look at Ryan and Josh, expecting to see the same fear on their faces. What he saw instead sent a chill down his spine that had nothing to do with the cold air. Ryan and Josh were standing shoulder to shoulder, perfectly still. The moonlight hit their faces, and Alex realized their expressions were completely blank, slack-jawed, dead eyes staring right through him. "Guys? You good?" They didn't answer. Then, without a word, without any signal between them, they both moved. They stepped past Alex, squeezed through the hole in the fence, and walked toward the dark, gaping maw of the gymnasium door. They moved with a strange, fluid synchronization, like two puppets on the same set of strings. Alex was bewildered. He didn't want to be left alone outside. The fear of being the coward outweighed his fear of the building. "Wait up!" Alex hissed, scrambling through the fence after them. He followed the two silent figures into the pitch-black interior of Blackwood High.
Back in the car, Steve checked his watch. 10 minutes had passed. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, already bored. He half hoped the cops would show up just to make things interesting. Inside the school, the atmosphere was suffocating. The air smelled of wet rot, asbestos, and something else. Something metallic, like old copper pennies. Alex held his phone up, recording everything. "Okay, it's Alex. I'm inside Blackwood. It is terrifying in here." He turned the camera to tease his companions. "Say hi to YouTube, guys!" He shined the light on Ryan and Josh. They were walking about 10 feet ahead of him. They didn't react to the light. They didn't turn around. They just kept walking up the main staircase toward the second floor, their footsteps eerily quiet on the linoleum. "Man, you guys are boring," Alex nervously laughed, trying to fill the silence. "Steve's got you whipped, huh? Scared to even talk?" They reached the second floor. Moonlight filtered through the cracks in the boarded windows, casting long skeletal shadows across the lockers. Alex was too focused on his camera and the creeping shadows to really process the behavior of his friends. He was running on adrenaline, focused on the goal. Get to the third floor, prove Steve wrong, get out. "One more floor," Alex whispered to his camera. "We're heading up to the explosion site." He started climbing the stairs to the third floor. Ryan and Josh were right behind him now, close, too close. He could hear their breathing. It was synchronized, in, out, perfectly matched. Outside, in the safety of his car, Steve nearly jumped out of his skin when his phone blared. He fumbled for it in the dark cup holder. He looked at the caller ID. It was Ryan. Steve chuckled, answering the phone. "Yo, did Alex chicken out already? Are you guys hiding in the bushes laughing at him?" There was a beat of silence on the other end. Then Ryan spoke. But his voice wasn't whispering from a dark hallway. It was loud, clear, and sounded completely normal. "Steve, dude, what is your problem?" Ryan asked, sounding annoyed. Steve was confused. "What do you mean? Why are you calling me? You're supposed to be making sure Alex goes upstairs." "Upstairs? What are you talking about?" Ryan's voice was joined by Josh's in the background. "Dude, we've been standing at your front door for 20 minutes. You said you were grabbing soda upstairs. We're locked out of your house." Steve's blood turned to ice. His brain couldn't process what he was hearing. "Stop messing around, Ryan. It's not funny. I watched you. I watched you and Josh get out of my car 15 minutes ago and walk into the school with Alex." "Steve, are you high?" Ryan sounded genuinely concerned now. "Look, I'm FaceTiming you right now. Prove it." Steve pulled the phone away from his ear. The screen changed to a video call request. His hand was shaking so badly he almost dropped the phone. He hit accept. The screen lit up. It was a clear, bright video. Ryan and Josh were standing under the yellow porch light of Steve's house. They were holding Taco Bell bags and looking annoyed. Steve recognized his own front door behind them. Ryan waved at the camera sarcastically. "See? We're at your house, idiot. Where are you?" Steve couldn't breathe. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. If Ryan and Josh, the real Ryan and Josh, were at his house 5 miles away, then who or what did he just send into that abandoned building with Alex?
"Oh my God," Steve whispered. He threw the phone onto the passenger seat. He didn't hang up. He didn't care. He slammed the car door open and stumbled out onto the gravel road. He had to get Alex out. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was a nightmare brought to life. He ran toward the towering black silhouette of the school, screaming at the top of his lungs. "Alex! Alex, get out! It's not them! Alex!" His voice echoed uselessly against the brick facade. The building seemed to swallow the sound. Steve stopped in the middle of the overgrown lawn, staring up at the 3rd floor. He looked for the center window, the one they had agreed on. At first, it was just darkness. Then, a light flickered. It was Alex's flashlight. He had made it. He could see Alex's silhouette framed in the window. Alex was waving the flashlight frantically, probably grinning, thinking he had won the bet, thinking he was a hero. Steve cupped his hands around his mouth, screaming until his throat tasted like blood. "Alex, run! Look behind you! They aren't real!" Up on the 3rd floor, Alex couldn't hear him over the ringing silence of the school. Alex was too busy celebrating. He turned away from the window to high-five his companions. "We did it, boys!" Alex beamed, turning his flashlight toward Ryan and Josh. "Steve is gonna be so—" The words died in his throat. The beam of his flashlight cut through the dusty dark and landed on the 2 figures standing behind him. They weren't Ryan and Josh anymore. Standing there in the decaying classroom were 2 things that vaguely resembled humans, but they were wrong. They were too tall, their limbs stretched and elongated like pulled taffy. Their clothes, which had looked like jeans and hoodies outside, now looked like part of their skin, gray and molded. But it was their faces that stopped Alex's heart. They had no features, no eyes, no noses, only smooth, pale flesh where a face should be. Except for a mouth that was slowly opening way too wide, filled with rows of needle-like teeth. Down on the lawn, Steve watched in horror as the flashlight beam in the window went berserk, spinning wildly. He saw Alex's silhouette back away against the glass. And then he saw the other shadows. 2 enormous, elongated shapes rose up behind Alex, blocking out the faint moonlight. The flashlight beam went out. Complete darkness fell over the 3rd floor. For 2 agonizing seconds, there was absolute silence. And then came the scream. It was a sound Steve Miller would hear in his nightmares for the rest of his life. A raw, primal scream of absolute terror that was suddenly violently choked off. Steve didn't wait. Pure animal instinct took over. He turned and sprinted back to his car, tears streaming down his face. He dove into the driver's seat, slammed the car into reverse, and tore out of there, spraying gravel everywhere. He didn't stop driving until he reached the brightly lit parking lot of the police station downtown. By 1 a.m., Blackwood High was swarming with police cars, canine units, and a SWAT team. Steve, hysterical and barely coherent, had told them everything. The police verified Ryan and Josh's alibi immediately. They had been at Steve's house the entire time, corroborated by neighbors and time-stamped video from the doorbell camera. They had never been near the school that night. The SWAT team swept the school 3 times, top to bottom, every classroom, every closet, the flooded basement, the dangerous 3rd floor. They found nothing. No blood, no signs of a struggle. The only thing they found was on the 3rd floor, in the center classroom facing the street. Lying in the middle of the dust-covered floor was Alex's smartphone. The screen was smashed beyond repair. Alex Thorne had simply vanished from the face of the earth. Steve Miller was held for questioning for 3 days. He was the prime suspect for a long time. The police theorized it was a prank gone wrong, that Steve had hurt Alex and hidden the body. But there was no physical evidence, and Steve's terror was too genuine to fake. He passed every polygraph they gave him. Eventually, they had to let him go. The case went cold within 6 months. But the story didn't end there. In the small town surrounding Blackwood, the legends changed. They stopped talking about the ghost of the night watchman. Now they talk about the mimics. They talk about entities in the woods that watch us, learn our behaviors, and wear our faces to gain entry into our lives. And every year, on that humid night in July, teenagers dare each other to drive past Blackwood High. They say that if you park on the gravel shoulder and look up at the 3rd floor window, you won't see darkness. They say you'll see a faint, flickering flashlight beam. And if you roll down your window and listen very closely over the sound of the crickets, you can hear a boy crying for help, his voice echoing forever in the empty halls. This story is based on witness testimonies from a small town in Ohio that prefers to remain nameless. To this day, the only physical evidence recovered was Alex's smashed phone found in that empty classroom. While rumors persist that the device captured a final corrupted audio file of the encounter, the police have sealed the evidence, leaving the truth of what happened in that room locked away in the dark forever. What do you think Alex saw when that flashlight beam cut through the dark? Do you believe in doppelgangers or mimics? Or is there a more rational explanation for this disappearance? Let us know your theories in the comments. Until next time, try to stay in the light.
Prince of Darkness.